welcome to this week's episode of A Lost Cause. I'm Shauna Sparrow.
And I'm Annie.
And it should actually be our John Locke episode, but our special guest was not available this evening. He's in Toronto, so we are going to skip ahead to everybody loves this guy, Hurley.
Why does everybody hate him?
Yeah, good question. I guess we better talk about it. Hurley, also known as Hugo Reyes.
But before we do that, we have a couple shout-outs, don't we?
This is a new feature in our podcast because we need some sponsorship. So.
Okay, so first we have our perfume that we apply every day. Well, every time we do a podcast. Yeah. Juliet has a gun. It's not spelled properly, but still. Another shout-out is to Sterling Bowman because he just turned 30 on Monday. And whoever made my shirt, I don't know where I got it from. I think Etsy. But it's awesome, and I love it so much. And it's
so this is why
really
it's
great.
Important now that we are doing video episodes so that everyone can behold the wonder that is Annie's new shirt.
It is. I do love this shirt more than like anything I own, I think.
It is pretty amazing.
Because if you were to describe me in one sentence, it would be, my name's Annie, I love Taylor Swift, and my favorite Lost character is Ben Linus. So, kind of sums it all up.
Have you already taken the time to, figure out all the eras?
Of course I have. I mean, this is my favorite episode. He's committing a felony in this exact picture, so...
Well, you'll definitely have to wear the shirt again for the long-awaited, much-anticipated Ben episode.
But I have another one coming on the way, so... Which one will it be?
See, that's why everyone needs to keep
out.
Tuning in.
Yeah, also we have Daniel with us.
Yes, we mentioned him last week, but we couldn't find him.
Isn't he just so cute? And the Apollo bar that I
Hurley's
gifted.
Favorite chocolate bar.
I gifted to Shauna on Christmas. This is probably moldy. But
I don't think chocolate goes bad, especially if it's refrigerated. Lost would support that theory because Hurley is eating chocolate bars that are probably 3 decades old, so.
I mean, yeah.
And so that's what we're here to talk about, Hurley. So Annie, who is Hurley?
He's the guy. Well, should we start at the beginning? He's the funny guy's comedic relief.
Yeah, he does provide a lot of the comedic relief on the show. A lot of the humor or attempted humor comes through Hurley's character for sure. So he is a survivor of Oceanic 815. Hurley is a lottery winner, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Why do we love Hurley?
Why don't we love Hurley? He's the best. He's great. He's always looking out for other people. He's always nice.
He's really nice to everybody.
Even people who are really mean to him.
Well, I think that's one of Hurley's best qualities is how forgiving he is. If you think about Sawyer and some of the terrible things that, he says to Hurley, like the nicknames, and yet, Hurley just bounces back, forgives him, wants to be his friend. Miles, was not very nice to him, called him an idiot and all kinds of insulting names, and yet Hurley probably becomes one of his best friends. But I think, the prime example of Hurley's kind of loving, accepting, sympathetic nature would be, when he shares an Apollo bar with Ben. Sitting on that log,
Shauna seems to be really upset about it.
I'm not upset about it. It's just amazing to me that he would do that.
But why wouldn't he do that, though?
Well, because at that time in, the storyline, Ben is the enemy, right?
What did he do?
Well, they're holding him responsible for Ana Lucia and Libby, which probably isn't really totally fair.
That wasn't in season 2. That was in a later season.
Okay, but when did he share the chocolate bar with him?
Season 6.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At that point, Ben has done a lot of stuff, and yet Hurley still shares the chocolate bar with him. And I think, too, it's important to point out that Hurley is very honest. You'll recall when the Oceanic 6 get off the island, come back to civilization, they all agree to lie. And Hurley really doesn't want to lie, and it's hard for him.
We love Hurley.
Yeah, so he's pretty great. But I think if we're going to talk about Hurley, one of the first things we have to talk about are the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are the numbers?
It's kind of hard to explain, but
what is Hurley's first association with the numbers?
Well, there's this crazy guy. Well, Hurley was in a mental hospital
for a little while,
which is kind of weird. And he met this guy who would always say these 6 numbers over and over and over again. And
this is well before Flight 815.
Mm-hmm. And so Hurley played those numbers in the lottery and won.
Yeah, and it was like millions of dollars.
But then everything that he would use the money for, someone or something would get hurt.
It seemed like bad things started happening after he won the lottery, to the point where Hurley became convinced that the numbers are
bad.
Yeah.
The numbers are bad.
Yeah, and he actually even believed that he was cursed. So let's talk about that. Like, was Hurley cursed?
I don't think Hurley was cursed. I think that the people around him.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the question is, like,
the people
Hurley kind of suggests, like, he's very unlucky. Like, you know, but really, Hurley himself is very lucky.
Yes, Hurley.
But he brings bad luck to others, was sort of what he came to believe.
And I think that's true.
Well, it seems to be true, because a lot of people that are close to Hurley do die or bad things happen to them, but I don't know.
Until he comes to the island.
Well, but even then, like, he feels like, oh, of course Charlie is going to die because, you know, everybody close to me dies.
Think that,
I think he says that to Charlie, like, when Charlie's like, do you think that Desmond's visions are true? And he says, probably, you know, because everyone who gets close to me dies. And this was shortly after Libby died, which we can talk about a bit more later. But before we leave the topic of the numbers, so, and there's no right or wrong answer here, I don't think, but, like, first of all, what are the numbers? Let's hear them.
4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42.
That's right.
I didn't even have to think about that.
See how good that was? And yet, when we watched the Lost documentary, Getting Lost, so many of the actors on the show did not know the numbers and didn't even try to say them. Although I will point out that Jorge, who is like plays Hurley, knew the numbers, just rattled them off like that.
No, he got one wrong.
Did he?
Yeah.
But who got them right on his first try?
Who do you think?
that guy right there. So what do the numbers mean?
I don't know. I think.
Okay, let's talk about how we encounter the numbers once we're on the island. So we know that Hurley played them. The guy in the
first
institute.
of all, there's the numbers on the hatch.
Yep, there are the numbers on the hatch.
And I freaked out the first time I watched. And my friends are very slowly watching the series for the first time. And I'm just like dying for them to figure it out because it's so good.
And it's not just that they're on the hatch, like the entry, like, or the door, but the numbers are the code.
Oh, right, the code to the computer inside the hatch.
Yeah.
And Desmond had to enter it and then save the world. Push the button every 108 minutes and 4 plus 8 plus 15 plus 16 plus 23 plus 42 equals 108.
There you go. So the numbers are very important in the show.
I can't believe I know more about, like, Lost than math or, like, any schoolwork. And I can just...
I don't know if that is good or bad, but it is true. So all through the show, like through the first, 5-6 seasons, there's kind of still this mystery though, like, okay, but what are the numbers? Like, what do they mean? What's the significance of the numbers? And then in one of the very last episodes of the show, we do find out that
we figure out the numbers are people.
Yeah, so each number represents
one person,
a candidate.
Candidate.
And explain about the wheel, or the what is it called?
I think
it's a sundial or something.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of names on it, and all those names are candidates to be the next Jacob.
And they're all, like, identified by a number.
Identified by a number, yeah. By the way, when I was watching for the very first time, so this is impressive, I noticed that Rousseau's name was on there. So the question is it Danielle or Alex?
Mm-hmm.
To be continued.
And it probably, like, it wasn't just the 6 candidates, right? Maybe there was, like, well, it seems like there's hundreds and hundreds of candidates.
Yeah.
That Jacob was watching throughout their lives. But at a certain point, we see a cave where it's, like, the number and then the person's name and a lot of names crossed out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final 6 candidates all correspond with one of the numbers.
And I think that I think that Jacob didn't really have that high standards.
Yeah.
But I do think that Ben was probably on
at some point a candidate.
That, because I mean, he knew he was. Well, Richard was interested in him when he was like young.
I think.
But then he probably got crossed off once, like Alex. He started raising Alex, because with Kate, we didn't even talk about this in the Kate episode. Kate was no longer a candidate after she took Aaron and became a mother.
But it was not because she was punished for taking Aaron, like I had remembered wrongly, but because, like, she wasn't available to be the island's caretaker. And that's what they're candidates for, ultimately, is to replace Jacob and to be the caretaker of the island.
Yeah.
But do you think that when, like, they chose those numbers to be on the hatch and, like, chose them to be the code for the computer, did they have any idea that that was the significance of the numbers, or is it just kind of one of those connections we see in the show?
I think it's just, I kind of hated how, like, we saw it happening in the Dharma Initiative, because it's like, oh, that's why? It's not something crazy and cool, but I don't know, it just kind of seemed,
like a letdown a bit?
Yeah, kind of like a letdown.
I thought it was kind of interesting, though, that, like, these numbers that have sort of played this huge role in Hurley's life, and then when they go back in time, he's actually there at the very moment that they're punching them into the hatch.
I think season 5 is so great because there's so many moments like that.
Yeah.
With just, like, kind of the thing that every character's whole life is about. That's, like, where it starts.
I think that it's, the numbers themselves don't really have any power. Like, Hurley seemed to think, and there was a bit of a suggestion throughout the show, that it's sort of that combination of numbers has some sort of, power, but I don't think it does.
I don't know. What do I know?
I think that it's just, again, not like a coincidence, but just one of the connections that, these are the numbers, and they also end up representing people. But we don't find out how the guy in the mental institution that keeps saying the numbers, I don't think we
never find out how he
knows about them.
And that made me really mad, because I always wanted to know, because I was so astonished when it was the numbers.
But do you have a theory as to, like, why?
No.
Like, just your own theory? I think he's probably a former Dharma Initiative that, like, left on a sub.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And he probably, that maybe he spent too much time with Rydzinski, right? And that'll do it.
Me and Shauna are having a bit of an argument that I think you guys should know about, because more or less I said that if she was someone in Lost, she would be Rydzinski, and she took offense to that.
Well, I was just kind of joking in a self-deprecating way, that she made some sort of comment like, I'm the Ben to her Ethan, which, like, isn't really complimentary to either of us, but I said, well, really, like, if we're being honest, I'm probably more like Rydzinski, because I'm always irritated about something, and I live alone.
I didn't say anything against that, and she took offense to it. So.
I said, I can't help but notice you're not really arguing with me a lot on that comment about me being Rydzinski.
I don't know. I think that she would be Rydzinski if she was anyone on the island.
I could do worse. All right, well, we've talked about the numbers. Let's talk about another very distinguishing attribute of Hurley, which is Hurley sees dead people.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
And so when Hurley is institutionalized, there's this guy named Dave, who Hurley believes is another patient, And Dave is always trying to get him to do things that are a bad idea. Like, Dave's the one that tries to get him to escape. Dave's the one that tries to get him to, like, not take his medications, not participate in group, like, stuff like that. And then at the end of the episode, we find out that Dave isn't real. Like, there's a picture of him supposedly with his arm around Dave, and then we see the picture. There's no one there.
That's such a good episode.
And so, like, at the time, we sort of think, twist. Like, Hurley, that was part of his, like, delusion, is that he sees things that aren't there. But later, it becomes apparent that actually, like, Hurley does see dead people, and dead people come to visit Hurley. But it's a bit more complicated than that, because we know that on the island, when you see a dead person, it could be like a ghost, or more often than not, it is the man in black taking that person's form.
So we have like 3 main things that we are confused about with the man in black, and that is Dave.
Yeah, Dave is really confusing.
Dave is probably the biggest one.
So let's talk about that first.
Yeah, okay.
So then we see the flashback with Dave before the oceanic flight, but then Dave appears to Hurley on the island. And again, Dave is like lying to Hurley, trying to convince him that the island isn't real, that it's all... Yeah, and kind of voicing a lot of the fan theories, actually, right? Like, none of it's real, it's all a dream. And actually, tries to persuade Hurley to, like, throw himself off a cliff because none of it's real, and he'll just wake up or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then that, like, leads us to think, well, maybe Dave is the man in black because, he knows that Hurley is a candidate and doesn't want him to live. But then that's a little bit tough, because what's wrong with that theory, that Dave is the man in black?
Because the man in black can only be dead people.
Whose bodies are on the island.
So are we going to bring up my dad's theory?
So, Annie's dad, my brother, who was supposed to be our guest tonight.
No, I was going to keep that a secret from them. We can edit that out later.
Yeah. In any event, he has a theory that... So this, I have to back up a little bit. In another episode, we actually discovered that Libby was at the same institute when Hurley was there. And so Libby was actually institutionalized because she was so depressed about the death of her husband, David. So your dad's theory is that Dave is David, and maybe Libby had his ashes with her on the flight. And so that would allow the man in black to appear as Dave. And I mean, there's no real, like, evidence of that other than, he shares the same name. But it would be an explanation, because it is very tough to explain how the man in black could at this one time appear as someone who, I mean, maybe never existed at all. Like, because every time he always appears as someone who's died and their body's on the island.
I just thought of something. Are we going to talk about the other 2 things that make sense? Second, Emily Linus, Ben's mom. In the best episode, young Ben sees his mom outside of his bedroom
remember,
window.
He never met, right? Because she died giving birth to him?
Like off the island.
Off the island.
And she's at his window. And it would make sense if she was the man in black, except for they're living in the barracks, and the barracks have a supersonic fence keeping the monster out. So it can't be.
Yeah. So that makes us think that it is really a ghost.
But another thing I just thought of right now is maybe it's that painting. Maybe that painting has something to do with it. I don't know. Maybe it just, because I think that there's someone else on the island who appears without their body, and I can't remember who, but maybe it's just there has to be something that belonged.
Maybe just something that belonged to them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last thing is not really the same thing, but Christian Shepherd.
Well, just sort of the question of when people appear to Hurley that he knew on the island, like Charlie appears to him, Ana Lucia, when he's off the island, he's back in LA. Whenever now someone dead appears, you kind of have to question, is this really the person or is it the man in black? But I think that when Charlie visits him or Ana Lucia or any of those other characters in LA, it can't be the Man in Black.
It can't be.
Because he can't leave the island.
And,
so how could it be him?
I mean, we know that we have that great episode where Hurley and Miles are talking to each other about their powers. And Miles obviously can talk to dead people. I mean, he did when he was a little boy. So.
Or they can talk to him.
Yeah, well,
I guess he can talk to them. Yeah. But then there's also the other question that, like, whenever we see Christian Shepherd on the island, we now believe that, okay, he's the Man in Black. But what about when Jack sees Christian Shepherd off the island and he's already died? Like, so when he's back home and he keeps seeing Christian Shepherd.
Because it can't be
again,
the Man in Black.
It can't really be the Man in Black.
And they can't just say that it is.
Because if he could just get off the island, then what is the whole fight about, right? That's like his whole mission is to leave the island. So that's like a very interesting topic. And Hurley, I think by the end, sort of comes to accept his gift, that he can see dead people and they visit him. But
I mean, he in season 5, he seems to be like casual about it with Miles, but maybe that's just because.
Well, I think for a long time he really believed he was crazy, and so he was kind of afraid of it. And then we have some of the important relationships to Hurley. So Hurley gets to have a love interest, and that is Libby, who's a tailie. And they have only really, well, they were supposed to go on their first date, and then tragically Libby is shot and dies. Yeah, Michael. But what I like about Libby when we see her in the Sideways is that, like, Hurley's life is very different in the Sideways, that, you know, there's no sense of him being unlucky. Like, it's kind of like everybody loves Hugo, and he's just like, everyone considers him to be the luckiest guy. He hasn't really had any mental health issues. But then Libby remembers him, and she's actually at the institution again, and she thinks she's crazy, and everybody thinks she's crazy. And it's just kind of a nice, like, moment when Hurley remembers her, because he knows what it's like to sort of feel
they're one of the sweetest couples on the show.
And he knows what it's like when, you know, people think you're crazy but you're not. So that was really sad, but
well, in the flash forwards, I didn't really like Hurley in the flash forwards because he was like trying to get into the mental
yeah,
hospital.
Like he didn't do well at all. Like a lot of the other Oceanic 6, well, except for Sun because she's grieving Jin, but you know, some of them seem to be doing really well. Like for a while, Jack and Kate are doing awesome. You know, Kate like beats the murder charge. They're going to get engaged. Saeed gets to marry the love of his life. It's all going great. But for Hurley, it was never great. Like he didn't like the lie.
Yeah.
He can't like live with it. Charlie visits him in a convenience store and he freaks out and
gets arrested temporarily, and then
he's back in the institution again. So, but Hurley's kind of the first one to sort of figure out, like, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have come back. And then Hurley has an interesting relationship with his parents. So do you want to talk a little bit about what happened with Hurley's dad?
Yeah, Hurley's dad just left when he was, 11, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Why again?
Well, he said he was going to Vegas and he never came back. It was just one of those cliche things where the dad leaves the family and, you know, says he's going for a pack of cigarettes and doesn't come back. And he'd been working on like a car, and that's what he used to do with his dad, is work on old cars. So that sort of explains like why why he's so interested in the Dharma bus and wants to get it going. But then when Hurley wins the lottery, his dad actually does come back, which, you know, Hurley's very religious mother is excited about that, and like.
But Hurley doesn't believe. He thinks it's just because of the money, which is valid.
Well, I think it's a valid concern for sure. But then Hurley does end up forgiving his dad, and it's just kind of an interesting contrast because, you know, there's that episode where, like, Miles realizes that Dr. Marvin Candle is his dad, and he feels like his dad kind of abandoned them, right? Like told them to leave the island, didn't care, didn't make any effort to be in his life.
And then Hurley influences him to give his dad a second chance, and it's really beautiful. Yeah. Oh, I love that episode.
Yeah, but it just shows you, like, again, Hurley's forgiving nature. That not only did he forgive his own dad, but, you know, he's trying to help Miles, even though Miles has not been very nice to him.
No.
And so then we have also the special relationship between Hurley and Jacob. So I think, as we discussed in a previous episode, there's kind of like a flashback where at some point in their lives, like, all the candidates come across Jacob and he touches them, and that's sort of thought to be like the moment that they kind of become a candidate. But with Hurley, it goes even further, because Jacob actually, when they go back to the off the island and in LA, and of course, you know, the big mission is to get them to all go back to the island. Jacob is the one that talks Hurley into doing that and gives him Charlie's guitar. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like makes Hurley a really special person, because Jacob is just this mythical, mysterious character.
Jacob is overrated. Jacob is not that great.
But he does kind of favor Hurley in this special way. And so why do you think Jacob chose Hurley to be the one that he kind of approached?
Because Hurley is awesome. And Hurley's like, he helps people. That's what he does.
And I think, too, like, a little bit open-minded. Like, Locke would have been another good one to approach, you know, because he's a believer. But Hurley doesn't have a lot of the defenses, like, that, say, Jack does. And it just goes to show, again, the difference that, like, all Jacob has to do to get Hurley to come back to the island and to, like, believe in what's happening is just tell him. Whereas Jack has to fight everything tooth and nail. And, like, Jacob knew, like, the only way to convince him was to take him to the lighthouse, where he kind of sees, like, all the flashbacks.
And then he crashes out and smashes all those mirrors.
Yeah, has to have one of his classic Jack tantrums and smash everything. But it works.
The Jack tantrum.
And then he's convinced. Whereas it sort of makes you appreciate Hurley that, like, he doesn't need all those theatrics, you know? He just kind of is accepting. So it's another reason that we love Hurley. But can Hurley sometimes be annoying?
We all can. Sorry, I'm so tired. Yeah, he can. Do you want to give some examples?
Well, I'm just thinking of, like, there was one episode in particular where your dad was getting really annoyed with Hurley, and like,
wasn't that?
I think that was the one we were just talking about.
Whatever happened. No, which one was it?
Hoth.
Like, yeah, was it that
Some
one?
Like It Hoth?
Or was it when they were explaining time travel?
I thought it was Some Like It Hoth.
It was both. My dad was getting really annoyed because I think he didn't even care.
But what are, like, some of the best Hurley moments?
Best Hurley moments. Well, I just love Hurley when he's, like, having fun. So obviously the Shambhala. Mm-hmm. What is that episode called? Whoa, that was loud.
Well, it's the episode where Hurley finds the Dharma bus.
The infamous Dharma bus.
Yeah. And, you know, it's so interesting because that episode, when we first see it, it's sort of thought as kind of almost a throwaway episode. It's just like a lighter moment where, like, you know, Hurley finds this bus with the skeleton in it and, like, all these beer cans and gets it running, and then the song Shambhala is playing, and it just seems like really kind of festive and upbeat. And then, like, later we learn it's a little darker than it seems.
I just love Lost for that, though. Like, don't you? That they just, like,
turn everything on its head.
And then when I watched that episode, I was like, Roger is my boyfriend, and got to that episode.
In that episode, the first time we see Roger, he's like a skeleton dressed in a, like, Dharma suit that says Roger Workman. And so it's kind of like, oh, who's Roger?
I saw on Reddit that people were like, how is Roger related to Ben if they don't even have the same last name?
Because they think his last name is Workman, yeah.
But, yeah.
And so, Sawyer's, like, enjoying a, like, 30-year-old Dharma beer with like, Roger, the skeleton. And it just kind of seems funny. But then, of course, we, like, find out what Roger was doing in that van. And it's like, that's where he was when the purge happened. And that was the song that was playing.
But isn't it so great that that's how, like, we figure it out? And that's what they did with Ben's character? Like,
It is. It's like a real twist, but it's just kind of, again, sometimes Lost can be a little bit dark. Like, it can be light, and you think, oh, this episode is just kind of, like, not important, not really advancing the plot. These Hurley episodes are just, like, funny. But then, actually, there's kind of a dark edge there.
Oh, Ben.
But let's talk a little bit about the actor that plays Hurley.
Oh, yeah.
Jorge Garcia. And my take on him is he is a really good sport. Because when you watch the behind the scenes, like during filming,
he's always there.
He always participates.
I don't think that he's that different from his character.
Yeah, like an easygoing guy, doesn't think like too highly of himself, like, and just really likes to participate. And one of my favorite behind the scenes like features on the DVDs for Lost is they actually show him reading the final script, and he cries. And so it's just really moving and really great that he kind of invited the audience into that moment. But then not only like during the filming of Lost was he a good sport, like he's a good sport now, because whenever there's any kind of like Lost reunion or the documentary or a fundraiser, like he seems to be willing to be involved. So I think that's great too. And obviously he was very beloved as a character because the band Weezer actually had an album called Hurley, and the album cover is just like a close-up of Hurley's face. So pretty cool. And before we get to the hot take, we have a few minutes, but let's talk about like what we don't like. And this isn't Hurley's fault, but I don't really like all of the jokes about Hurley's weight.
Bad.
And that is one thing,
It's not funny. It's never been funny.
It's mean.
And it's just kind of awkward. Like, are we really supposed to be laughing at that? Because I just cringe at it. Yeah. Like, legitimately.
It is really cringy, and it makes me feel sorry for, like, the character and the actor. Mm-hmm. I also feel like there's some, like, kind of inappropriate stereotypes, like, about, like, he's Mexican, right? His, on the show, and, like, his mom, and just kind of some of the... It just seems like promoting a lot of those stereotypes about.
And I mean, Mexican. It was a show in 2004. Like it wasn't the best time.
And the show still deserves a lot of credit because it did have a very diverse cast.
I'm so sorry, Daniel. Oh no.
This is a very unfortunate blooper.
Ow. Oh no.
The numbers are bad. So Annie dropped Daniel on the floor and then really injured herself trying to get back into the seat.
We need a medic.
The kinds of things we do.
The hostels.
For this. Yeah. We've got to take Annie to the temple and she'll never be the same. Well, I think we might be ready for this week's hot take.
The hot take, which I came up with all by myself. And obviously no one gave the idea to me. That's
what a strange thing to say.
What? What was that?
Just came out of nowhere, but go ahead, let's hear the hot take.
All right. Maybe I'll talk to
Annie's hot take of the week.
It's Hurley's. Hurley is a great character, but his episodes are bad.
So Hurley himself as a character is great. Makes every episode he's in, like, better as a supporting character. But the episodes that focus on Hurley, like his flashback episodes, are bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's true.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, one more thing before we say goodbye to these lovely folks. AKA like the 2 people watching this. I want to talk about the what's it? Every man? No, what is it called? Oh no! New man in charge. The new man in charge.
Oh yeah, good Annie.
Good. I'm so
really,
sorry.
Really worried there for a minute.
Well, I'm just like going right downhill.
And so what was that? Like it was.
Okay, it was like a after sequence sort of thing. I think it's just on YouTube.
Right. And it was after the show was finished.
With Hurley as the new Jacob.
And we haven't even talked about that. How like Hurley becomes the new Jacob.
Yeah, Hurley's the new Jacob, and who does he recruit? Tell me.
So every sort of Jacob has a number 2.
Tell me who it is.
I'm just setting it up, Annie. So like the original Jacob, his number 2 is Richard. And, Richard, as we know, doesn't age. He's kind of the advisor. He's sort of the trusted ally. So then when Jack becomes the new Jacob, Hurley is his number 2. And then Jack only gets to be the new Jacob for like a day.
Not even.
And then dies. And now Hurley is the new Jacob. And who, out of everybody that he could choose, who does Hurley choose to be his number 2?
Someone who has the most experience in the island.
It's Ben. And this is another redeeming, like not redeeming, but like really great character trait of Hurley is that he's able to look past like the grace that he shows Ben. That
what
he's able
has Ben ever done to Hurley?
To look past. Well, if Hurley believes that like Ben was in any way involved in Libby getting killed, like because. Fine, it was Michael's choice to fire the gun, but that was his assignment. He was supposed to go and break Ben out of the hatch. And part of that, the consequence was that his true love was killed, right? So, I think like Hurley he kidnapped his friends, like, he kidnapped Walt. Hurley has lots of reason to have a grudge against Ben. But not only does he like forgive Ben, but he actually puts Ben in this position of trust, which I think is actually really wise.
Okay, but if you were Hurley, who would you choose?
Who
would you choose? Tell me.
Ben
you
is
would
a
choose
good choice.
Ben because he's been on the island for so long, and because he's like had so much experience as the leader of the others, and just stuff.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that only Hurley can really kind of look past the bad and find sort of the virtue and even recognize that in Ben. That, like, maybe even a lot of the bad stuff Ben did, like he did for a good motive.
For Jacob.
That he did it for
a good motive, which isn't, like, Jacob is...
And not just for Jacob, but for the good of the island, right? And I don't think there's, like, much dispute that Ben really did care about, like, the well-being of the island.
What are you talking about?
Well, I'm saying that's not controversial. Like, even the Ben haters have to sort of admit.
Oh, I thought you were saying he didn't care about
No, that he does. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna...
Yeah, boy, that was...
kind of scary there.
But we resolved our misunderstanding.
Anyways, the new man in charge is the after sequence, and it's Ben goes to some factory, and there's still Dharma Initiative workers.
And they're still, like organizing the drops. Yeah.
And then he's like, guys, you could actually stop now. And then they each ask a question about the island,
and again, this is a bit of fan service, that it's sort of like, okay, like they said we didn't answer a lot of the questions, so let's like put something out there that answers some of them. And like, what were some of them?
The polar bears, and I don't remember the other one. I don't even remember the polar bear one. Sorry, yeah. I'm really sorry.
Because we didn't really feel like there were a lot of unanswered questions, so like we didn't need the tutorial, but whatever.
And then I don't know what I feel about this, but they were talking with Walt.
And it seems like they're recruiting Walt to be the next number 2.
But I think that's what happened with young Ben. and Richard?
Well, yeah, maybe.
I think so.
I mean, usually there isn't that kind of line of succession, right? It's just like the candidate, and then that candidate picks a number 2. But I think Walt would be a good choice.
Walt is so cute in the first season, and I love Walt in the first season, but then the raft.
Well, it's not Walt's fault that Michael keeps screaming his name. Like, I mean, that's not Walt's fault.
That's my son.
That's my son. But I think that, there's all this, like, question about, oh, Walt is special, and Walt is psychic. That's what it is. But I think a lot of his abilities would really help him on the island, and I think that the island is where he truly belongs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of biased because of the whoa.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think it's a good choice, though.
Anyways.
Yeah, so that's, I think, wraps up this episode. So, dude, catch you later. And
namaste and good luck.
And we will see you in another life, brother. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye. Oh, see you next time in the lock episode.